Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be making a response video to SuperDerek RPG. It's a really awesome RPG review channel on YouTube. Make sure to go check his channel out. He made a video about if turn-based RPGs are dying, and I'm going to be doing a response video to that. In the video, he basically talks about how turn-based RPGs were very heavily criticized, especially in the earlier days of gaming, where game journalists and reviewers would say that it was an outdated form of combat and that it was only a necessity because of the technology at earlier points of gaming, and how game journalists and reviewers didn't give it a fair chance and they kind of wrote it off, and they did a big disservice to the turn-based RPG combat system. Now, one other really great point that SuperDerek makes is how RPG developers and companies are noticing that action games tend to sell better because they have more flashier combat with really cool attacks and abilities and things you can do. So to the average person, it's going to appeal more when they see that versus a turn-based RPG where it kind of has more of a learning curve and you kind of have to learn the ins and outs of the battle system to fully understand it. So because of that, a lot of corporations are making these RPG games a lot more action-based and adding in action elements and even making the combat systems full action RPGs instead of turn-based RPGs. Now, I want to make it clear, I enjoy both turn-based RPG games and action RPG games, although turn-based RPGs are my favorite kind of RPGs, even though I like both. So now on to the point that I start to disagree respectfully with SuperDerek RPGs. Again, I totally respect his opinion. I'm not saying that his opinion is wrong or that he's wrong for having the opinion, but I disagree with him that RPGs aren't dying. Now, his video, he was saying are turn-based RPGs dead, and technically they're not dead. That's correct, but I do believe they are on a decline and they are on a downfall in terms of popularity. And I just say this from personal experience and looking at the ways that turn-based RPG series have gone, and then also looking at sales and the reception to turn-based RPGs and what I've experienced and what I've looked at. If you look at Final Fantasy and RPG series like that, they have gone in a full action RPG combat direction. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is not like the original Final Fantasy VII at all in terms of the combat. It is a full action RPG type of game. Final Fantasy 15 was not turn-based. They abandoned that, and it is a full action RPG. Square Enix is noticing that action RPGs tend to sell better, and they are going in that direction with Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy VII Remake, I do believe if they made it turn-based like the original, it would not have sold as well. I think it would have sold a lot worse, and I think it would not have had the appeal it did. Now, I'm also noticing, SuperDerek did bring up that Final Fantasy was going in that action RPG direction, and then he also brings up the Trails series, and yes, the Trails series is turn-based, and it does have a very dedicated fan base, but the Trails games are very niche. Like, I am talking to, younger gamers who are like Gen Z gamers, and they're into very different types of games than turn-based RPGs. They might be into like Pokemon, and Pokemon's like a really big turn-based RPG series, but even with Arceus, they're starting to experiment with some type of like action battles in that game. But now if you look at turn-based RPGs, when I talk to Gen Z gamers and I talk to, what are your favorite type of games? It's mostly like shooting type of games, online competitive multiplayer type of games, or action games that are adventure type of games like Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's those types of games that they tend to enjoy. And I want to make it very clear, there's nothing wrong with not liking RPGs. It doesn't make you any less of a gamer. I hate when people be elitist and they put other people down for preferring other types of games. So I want to make that clear. But I'm just saying that when I talk to younger gamers like Gen Z gamers, they are not into turn-based RPGs at all. And they are the future gamers, and they are the next generation of gamers. And so we got a generation of gamers coming up that don't care for turn-based RPGs. It's just not their thing. And again, I am going to repeat that there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them any less of gamers. Now, what I want to make clear is that SuperDerek brought up the Trails series, which is turn-based, right? Well, with the latest Trails game that they put out, that Falcom, the developers, made, they included a action RPG combat system you can switch to at any point in the game. So the turn-based combat is still there, but now there's also action RPG combat. And I believe they did this because they noticed that the future of the RPG genre is going to be action RPG. That is the main reason I believe they put it in the new Trails game. And so it is to appeal to that crowd who doesn't really care for turn-based RPGs and they want more of the action style type of combat. And I do believe that's going to be the future of the RPG genre. I know a lot of people who are really interested in like Tales of Arise and those types of games because the game has really cool looking combat. And I think Tales of Arise's recent success really shows that. Tales of Arise was very popular, and a large part of that was because of the very flashy, very cool action combat. I think the only real popular RPG series that are turn-based nowadays is Pokemon, which is always going to be popular because of the appeal of it. And then the Persona games. Persona 3, 4, and especially 5 were massively popular. But Persona is a rare exception. It's the exception to the rule. You know, most turn-based RPGs are not going to be nearly as popular as Persona unless they're like Pokemon games. So that is the exception to the rule, and it's important to understand that. When I talk to younger gamers who are Generation Z gamers that aren't interested in turn-based RPGs, these people are not talking about the next Dragon Quest game. They're not saying, hey, I'm excited for Dragon Quest 12. They're not talking about the next Trails game and being all like, hey, I'm excited for the next Trails games. Some of them don't even know about these game series at all. And they're not excited for these games. And it's showing that turn-based RPGs are losing their appeal and they're becoming a very niche thing. Now, there's always going to be an audience for these types of games, but as game development gets more expensive and the costs go up, developers cannot afford to keep catering to these very small niches, and turn-based RPGs, for the most part, are on a decline. Another example of this, look at all the turn-based RPG series that have completely disappeared or died down. Wild Arms, a turn-based RPG series, there has not been a new Wild Arms game since the PS2 era. Another game series there has not been another new game of since the PS2 era, Grandia. Grandia 3 was the last game of the series. Camelot no longer makes Shining Force games. Shining Force is dead completely. There has not been a Shining Force turn-based RPG game like Shining Force 1, 2, or 3 in a very long time. Golden Sun is completely dead. It died after Golden Sun Dark Dawn. There was never another Golden Sun game after that. And Camelot has not made a Golden Sun game since then, and it's been over 10 years. Another game series there has not been a game made for recently is Etrian Odyssey from Atlas. When was the last time we got an Etrian Odyssey game? Many years ago. Chrono is another dead series. You know, we had Chrono Trigger, then Chrono Cross. We've never gotten another game since, even despite many people claiming that they want another game and the appeal being there for RPG fans of another Chrono game, but they still have not made another turn-based Chrono game or even a Chrono game at all. And if you also look at like a series like Lufia, Lufia is also dead. They haven't made a new Lufia game in many, many years that has been turn-based. It's showing that the turn-based genre is on a decline and it's becoming more and more niche of a genre. And if you go and look at like strategy RPGs, which are kind of like turn-based RPGs in a way, such as Shining Force and Fire Emblem, Fire Emblem is really the only popular strategy RPG series. You know, you also have Disgaea, but Disgaea does not have the mainstream appeal of Fire Emblem. Disgaea in North America sells way less copies than Fire Emblem. It doesn't even have like 1/10 of the popularity Fire Emblem does. And if you look at other strategy RPGs, I mean like Shining Force, like I mentioned, that's dead. Final Fantasy Tactics, we haven't had a new Final Fantasy Tactics game since the DS. So turn-based RPGs are just not as popular as they used to be. The new generation of gamers, Gen Z gamers, are saying, hey, turn-based RPGs are not our thing. And I think gaming companies are noticing that trend. They're noticing that change and what gamers prefer, and they are switching RPGs to have more action elements and make them more action RPG type of games so that they can keep sales up. And I think action RPGs are going to be the future of the RPG genre. The last time turn-based RPGs were really in the spotlight was maybe the late PS2 era. It really hit its popularity, its peak in the PS1 era with FF7 in North America, when that put turn-based RPGs on the radar for a lot of people. I do want to say thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it. Check out my Twitch channel, www.twitch.tv/Shockstorm. Give me a follow on the Twitch channel. I do full game playthroughs of single player games on my channel, and I also play some online games there from time to time. I then do reviews of the games I finish on stream on my YouTube channel, and I'm in the process of working on another game review for a game I recently finished on my Twitch channel. So make sure to go and click on the link in the description, give my Twitch channel a follow, and stop by the stream. We're always glad to have new people there in the channel and in the community. And I want to say thank you all so much. Everybody have a great rest of the day, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you all, and have a great one, everybody.